All right, welcome back, everyone. It is currently 8:51 Tuesday, 8:51 Central Time, Tuesday, October 18th. So, coming at you a little bit early this week. Felt like being productive. Still no James. Still haven't asked him to come on the podcast. I'm splitting this up. Hopefully he can come on Thursday. I haven't asked him yet, but I'm hopeful that he can hop on for 15, 20 minutes and give some picks, maybe talk some ball. But yeah, so busy weekend in football. I'm going to go ahead and start with the NFL and do a quick recap. Thursday Night Football. Terrible game. No two ways about it. Final score was the Commanders 12, Bears 7. Just not a very good game. Honestly, though, it kind of got entertaining toward the end. I did, because last week I was watching Baylor, West Virginia on Thursday night. Then I hopped on the podcast during halftime and then some of the second half to get an episode out. And then when that was done, I went to the Commanders-Bears game. And it kind of got entertaining. Came down to really the last play of the game. Bears had the ball definitely inside the red zone, inside the 10-yard line or something. And I thought it was a touchdown at first, and then ball never crossed the plane. So just kind of an entertaining finish to what was a really bad game. Commanders, they needed a win. They got it. Problem is Carson Wentz is now out like 4 to 6 weeks. So that's problematic. They're going to put Taylor Heineke out there. Heineke's not horrible. He can get you some wins, and they really need wins right now. So we'll see what Washington can do going forward. Chicago, this is, I believe it's 4 losses in a row for the Bears. No, not 4 in a row. I think it's 4 out of 5 losses for the Bears. Just not a good performance. I've seen people try to make, Justin Fields. I saw a tweet today about how Justin Fields is playing like the 10th best quarterback in the game the last couple of weeks, and I was like, slow down, because he is not the 10th best quarterback in the league right now. At least that's how I read the tweet. I can find it here in a minute, but if I really wanted to, but I don't feel like it. But yeah, it was something along those lines, like, don't look now, he's QB 10 in the last 2 to 3 weeks. I'm like, slow your roll. I even saw Bleacher Report say it, tweet it after the game. It was a photo of Justin Fields, like, with his helmet off on the field, looking down and, feeling displeased, I would assume. And Bleacher Report saying, like, he gave it his all. I have his numbers pulled up here. I was like, hang on. So 14 of 27 for 190 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and a quarterback rating of 28.1 and a passer rating, I think it was in the 70s. I was like, that's giving it your all? Give me a break. Bears, still really bad, and I don't see that changing. San Francisco at Atlanta. Big upset here. Atlanta beat San Francisco. Not only beats them by 2 scores. Now, I will say, San Francisco has had some injuries on the defensive side of the ball. This is back-to-back road games for them on the East Coast, so they've stayed on the East Coast like the last, 1.5 to 2 weeks. I still think San Francisco is pretty dang good. They got to get healthy. If they're healthy, they're one of the top teams in football. Atlanta, though, continuing to prove me right. I said in the preseason, I think this team's going to be better than people think. The win total going into the season for Atlanta was around 4.5. They're already at 3. I don't see them losing, what would that be, 10 of their last 11 games. Anything can happen in the NFL, but I don't see that happening. This team's playing well. Arthur Smith, I think, doing a heck of a job coaching. Don't think they're going to stay this, play at this high of a level. This roster is still pretty bad. But, if things don't get better in the NFC, and the NFC is terrible right now. I'll get to more teams here in a bit, but if the NFC stays this way, Atlanta is absolutely in the mix to make the playoffs, I think. New England at Cleveland. This one got out of hand fast. I remember checking the score because that was one of the games where James and I differed this past week. He picked the Browns, I picked the Patriots, and I was keeping my eye on it the whole game, and it was fairly close. I think it was 24-15 with midway through the fourth quarter, maybe at the start of the fourth quarter, and I was feeling pretty good about it. Then I blinked. Next thing I know, New England wins 38-15. So final score is a little misleading here, but for New England, this is now really 3 weeks in a row. And even the week before, what would that be? Week 3? I don't remember if it was week 3, but definitely the last 3 weeks. New England has sort of found some momentum. They went to Lambeau, played Green Bay very tough. They beat the doors off Detroit at home. They beat the doors off Cleveland this past week. Want to talk about don't look now? Don't look now. I think New England's starting to find its footing. Now, granted, the AFC is much deeper than the NFC. It's going to be incredibly difficult for New England to make the playoffs in the AFC, but they're sitting at 3-3. It's probably better than what I had them in the preseason, especially without. I think that's equally impressive without Mac Jones. Bailey, I don't know if it's time to make the argument for Bailey Zappi, but they found a rhythm these last few weeks. Cleveland. I feel like this season's getting away from Cleveland. I mean, honestly, Kevin Stefanski might be coaching his way out of a job. He came to that. Excuse me. He came to Cleveland. I was pretty high on him at Minnesota. He did a good job his first year in Cleveland, getting them to the playoffs for the first time in almost 20 years, getting their first playoff game in forever. I think since the 90s. I think maybe further back than that. But then, 2021 was a disappointment. We blamed it on Baker. And this year, not off to a good start. And I know Deshaun Watson is suspended, and they've had some injuries. But the Browns have been a disappointment. This was, in the preseason, these first 6 games was the easiest stretch of games that a team has had or is probably going to have this season. Let me pull up their schedule real quick. Let me see. Okay. I don't want the preseason. All right, so game 1, it was Carolina. Game 2, the Jets. Game 3, Pittsburgh. Game 4, Atlanta. Game 5, the Chargers. Then game 6, New England. And how many of these games were at home? 1, 2, 4? No way. 1, 2, 3. Holy shit, yeah. So they're all ready. So that's the other thing. Cleveland. This was, number one, this was an easy stretch of games here. I know Deshaun Watson's suspended, but even with Jacoby Brissett, they could have gone 3-3, maybe 4-2 during that stretch if they really wanted to. And instead, they're sitting at 2-4, and you just played half of your home games. And now, you still got 11 games, and you still got to go on the road, what? Like 5 times? Hang on. 1, 2, no, a whole lot more than that. 7 times. So 7 times in these next 11 weeks, right? Hang on. I'm terrible at math. 1, 2, yeah. So 2 times, it's 18 weeks. I'm sorry. But in your next 11 games, so I was right. The bye week was messing me up. So 7 times in these next 11 weeks, you got to go on the road. The schedule's about to get tougher. I don't think Cleveland's going to sniff the playoffs. I thought maybe if they were around 500, they could maybe hang around, maybe sneak in once Deshaun Watson came back, but they're 2-4. They only got 4 home games left. It hasn't looked good already for Kevin Stefanski. Now the schedule gets tougher. Like I said, only 4 home games left in 11 games. This is a problem for the Browns. And if you're a Browns fan, I don't know if you're that positive, unless once you get Deshaun Watson back, season may or may not be over at that point. But if he comes back and he just balls out for those 6 games he's able to play, and you miss the playoffs, and you're like, well, okay, well, at least I still feel good about where we're going to be next year. But this isn't what you expected going into the season. It's not what I expected. I thought Cleveland would be somewhat competitive. Now I'm not sure they're going to win 5 or 6 games. And I think I originally had them at 7. So we'll see. But yeah, Cleveland. I'm dead serious. I think Stefanski might lose his job. All right, Jets at Packers. This was an upset. I'll go ahead and start with the Jets. Jets look good. I mean, I was critical of them, or not critical, skeptical of them because, going into the last week, 3 of their wins came against bad teams. I think 2 of them were against backup quarterbacks, so not all that impressive. But they took it to Green Bay. I'll give them credit. Robert Saleh has that team playing with a ton of confidence. Defensively, they look really good. Quentin Williams is playing like a Pro Bowler. Sauce Gardner's looking really good at corner. I think defensively, I think the Jets are legit. Offensively, they're going to have to win some games throwing the ball. They can rely on Breece Hall as much as they want, who, by the way, looks like the rookie. I think the Jets have right now the rookie of the years in the AFC with Sauce Gardner and Breece Hall. They're going to have to win the game, some games throwing the ball. And ever since Zach Wilson came back, even though they're 3-0 with him back in the lineup or back under center, I don't think he's thrown a touchdown pass. I don't think. Let me check. I know he didn't throw one against Green Bay. Okay, so he has thrown a quarterback, or he has thrown a touchdown pass this season, but it's only 1 in 3 games, so not great. As for the Packers, I mean, it ain't looking good. Sorry, my contacts are really dry today. It ain't looking good for the Packers. They don't have an identity on offense. Last week I preached for them to run the ball, and they kind of did against the Jets. Let me see how many times. It felt like they ran the ball quite a bit. 20 times, I mean, it felt like more than that, but 20 times for 60 yards, not good, obviously, but they tried to lean on the run game a little bit more. They just don't have an identity. And everyone, I don't know how you walk away from that game and think it's all because of their lack of talent at the receiver position. I heard someone say that on a podcast. I was actually listening to, what podcast was it? Crane and Company, a Daily Wire podcast. And they were like, what's Green Bay's issues offensively? And one of them said, they don't have any dynamic players at receiver. I'm like, dude, you're clearly not watching the game. And I'm not saying that I'm not sitting here pounding the table saying that they do have dynamic players at receiver. I'm not. But that's not why they're struggling offensively. They're struggling offensively because the O-line is not getting any push, and they have a quarterback who does not want to play within the confines of the offense, and him and the head coach are not on the same page. You have Aaron Rodgers after the game saying he wants to simplify the playbook, and then you have Matt LaFleur the next day saying he doesn't know what that means. Nobody's on the same page. No offensive identity. Defensively, they're not living up to the preseason hype. It's panic time for the Packers. And I say that as a Packers fan. Now, I will say, their issues are correctable. I mean, all it takes is for Aaron Rodgers or Matt LaFleur. I don't know who's going to break first. Probably LaFleur, because I think Rodgers is stubborn. But for them to say, nope, here is what we're going to do. We're going to lean on the run game, and we're going to have explosive plays in through the air, which I think they can do. Romeo Doubs can make plays. I haven't seen much from Christian Watson, but Dobbs can be a home run hitter. Lazard can make plays. It's not a great receiving core. You got to make do. You don't have the personnel to chuck the ball down the field 45 times a game, and that's all Rodgers wants to do apparently. So Packers in trouble. Moving on. Jags at Colts. More points in this game than I anticipated. Colts win, though, which is what I picked. Jags, man, that win over the Chargers seems like a long time ago. They've now lost 3 in a row. I'm not ready to give up on this team. I still think the Jags are pretty good. I respect Doug Peterson a lot as a head coach. This was a road game, and they already gotten the better of, not just gotten the better of Indianapolis earlier in the year, they embarrassed them in week 2. So I'm not surprised that they lost. It felt like probably catching Indianapolis at the wrong time. I still think the Jags can put together a decent team, and that division's pretty weak. Colts, they needed a win. They got it. They started the year, 0-1-1, 0-2-1, or something like that. And now they're, I think 3-2-1. So they're above 500, which is where they needed to be. And they're in a good spot in the division. I mean, they're only, they're probably leading the division, honestly. Maybe not. Let me look. Standings, I would imagine the Titans lead the division. Yeah, Titans lead the division. Colts are right there. I mean, Titans are 3-2. They just had a bye week. Colts are 3-2-1. They're right there with Tennessee. Although I think Tennessee is much better, but I'll get to them here in a bit. Minnesota at the Vikings at Dolphins. So I put the Vikings in my top 10 in my power rankings on my blog. I really didn't want to do it because the Vikings have won 3 games in a row now. I think by a combined, what? Not what I meant to click on. So they shellacked Green Bay week 1. They got shellacked week 2 by Philly. They've won 4 games in a row by a combined 4, 7, 14, 22 points in the last 4 weeks. Against bad competition, too. I don't feel like that's being talked about enough. I'm willing to give Vikings some respect here. They're at least winning games, but all 4 of their wins the last 4 weeks have come by 1 possession and against bad teams. James got on them earlier this week saying, this ain't college. But I don't think that's something you can just ignore. Like, they're struggling against bad teams. That's not a good sign. Anyway. And I know that the Dolphins aren't a good team. I have them ranked in my top 10 too. But the Dolphins are depleted at the quarterback position. Tua Tagovailoa is hurt. Skylar Thompson got hurt during the game. Teddy Bridgewater was initially ruled out for the game, and then Skylar Thompson got hurt in the game. Bridgewater had to step in and play, and the Vikings still only won by a touchdown, or by 1 possession. So, Vikings, not that impressive. I want to knock them out of the top 10, but the NFL is so upside down, I don't know what to make of them. I want to knock them out. Then I look at the rest of the board, and I'm like, I don't like any of these other teams, so I guess I got to keep Minnesota in my top 10. Dolphins, they got to get healthy. They're a much better team with Tua Tagovailoa under center. Bengals at Saints. Bengals won 30-26. Tough place to play in New Orleans. This was also the most explosive Cincinnati's offense has been all year. Scoring 30 points. I think they averaged over 6 yards per play, which is huge. I think that's one of the more underrated stat. Definitely, I think the most underrated stat in football is yards per play. And they average over 6, which is pretty damn good in the NFL. Usually, probably middle of the pack is around 5.5 yards per play. So if you're close to 6, you're near the top of the league. Over 6, you're doing damn good. And Cincinnati averaged, I think it was 6.4. So maybe they're turning a corner. New Orleans, I can't really figure out, other than the game against Tampa, all their 5 of their 6 games, I should say, have come by 1 possession. They could easily be 5-1, just as easily as they could be 0-6. I'm not really sure what to make of the Saints. Ravens at Giants. I'll start with the Giants. I texted my buddy William, who's a big Giants fan, and he's to which I think he's earned it. He's running his mouth a little bit about the Giants, and I'm letting him have it. And he gave me a hard time for the Giants beating Green Bay. I was like, you know what? You've had a rough couple of years. I'll let you have this one. And he's excited. I have no problem with that. But he asked me, he's like, what's your opinion of the Giants? And I told him, I was like, I doubted them the last couple of weeks, and they proved me wrong. Brian Daboll's a really good coach, I think, and I think they're really heading in the right direction. I just don't see them being able to sustain this, though. And I was shocked. He actually said, "Oh, I completely agree." But I mean, their win total going into the season was around 7. I remember saying before the season, I was like, hammer the under. No way they're getting close to 7. They're already at 5. And I don't see the Giants, falling off a cliff and losing. What would that be? Like 10 of their last 11 games or something like that. Yeah, close to about 10 of their last 11 games. Or, even if they got to, 7 wins, that would be not losing 9 of their last 11 games. I mean, I don't think that's impossible for that to happen, but I don't see that happening. The Giants are playing well. Brian Daboll has proven he's a pretty good coach. I think this is more of a 8-9, 9-8 team, but we'll see how the rest of the season goes. The Ravens, it's starting to become a problem with the Ravens, and I feel like we got to talk about it. In each of their losses, they've blown a lead of over, I think, 10 points. They were up like 35-14 against the Dolphins. They were up 20-7 against the Bills, and then they were up 20-10, I think, against the Giants. And they blew all 3 leads. That's a problem. However, they're still a really good team. They're well coached. Lamar Jackson is playing really well. Another surprise. Tampa Bay, I think, is in the same boat as Green Bay. They're in trouble, but I'll get to them in a bit. Pittsburgh beats Tampa 20-18. I've said it like the last week or two. Pittsburgh is not going to keep losing games. Mike Tomlin, this is not a very good team. The quarterback position is what's going to carry you in the NFL, and their quarterback position is pretty lousy. However, your roster can also carry you too. Pittsburgh's roster isn't great, but it's far from terrible at the same time. And Mike Tomlin is a great coach. I kept thinking, and saying the Steelers are not going to keep losing games. Like they're not going to finish like 2-15 or 3-14. I firmly believe they're going to win 6, 7, 8, 9, or maybe 9 games, but I think that's a bit of a stretch. They're going to figure it out. They're too talented defensively. They have enough playmakers offensively. Tomlin's a really good coach. They are going to string some wins together. It might not be 9 or 8, but in that 5, 6, 7 range, absolutely. Tampa. I think Tampa's in the same boat as Green Bay. They are not a good team. They don't know what they are offensively. And some of this is just they just don't have the right guys up front. You saw Brady get after them this past week. And some of that you just can't do anything about. That was one thing that happened in the preseason. They got depleted in the preseason along the offensive line, particularly the interior. And now I'm sure they're not getting much push. I know they're struggling to run the ball. Teams are starting to be able to get after Brady a little bit, a guy who really gets rid of the ball quickly. And at the same time, so your O-line's not getting much push. And then at the same time, your receivers aren't playing up to par. Mike Evans hasn't done a whole lot. Chris Godwin, I know he's been hurt, but he's been kind of a no-show. Julio Jones, earlier in the year, was the one making plays, and I'm sorry. Julio Jones was a big name 5 years ago. Now I think his best days are well behind him. So I think I read or heard that Leonard Fournette is leading this team in receiving, and I think that's a major problem. So Tampa, it's a big if they can somehow get healthy, get their guys back on the offensive line, and if guys step up on the perimeter, they're going to be a much better team. The problem is that's unlikely to happen. As the season goes on, your guys get weary and they get worn down and they usually get hurt. So you're already hurt. It's likely not going to get better. So, I think Tampa's in the same boat as Green Bay, although I feel worse about Green Bay. But I'm also a close fan. Carolina at the Rams. Rams win and cover, but they kind of snuck that in at the last minute. They were only up 17-10. And scored a touchdown to, go over to cover the spread about midway through the fourth quarter. So the final score is a little misleading here. I still don't think the Rams are, that good, even though, the old adage, good teams win, great teams cover. But I think the Rams still have problems. Carolina, first game without Matt Rule. I wasn't surprised that they made this a game. I thought they could exploit some matchups. But I think they were down. I think they played like 3 quarterbacks this game. Just 2, but Baker Mayfield didn't play. So when P.J. Walker and who is the other quarterback? Jacob Eason. So not even Matt Corral played. When those 2 guys are your quarterbacks, it's going to be a long year. They already traded Robbie Anderson, which he threw a temper tantrum in the middle of the game, so I'm not surprised. Sorry, James just texted me about something else. They're going to try to move Christian McCaffrey. I highly doubt they're going to be able to do that. So it's a fire sale going on in Carolina. I'm not surprised. They're 1-5. Their season's not going to get any better. Head coach is gone. Strip it all down. Next game, Arizona at Seattle. Seattle won by 10. This was one game I was surprised at the spread. Arizona was like a 3-point favorite on the road, and I was like, that doesn't add up. So I took Seattle, and Seattle ended up winning and covering. Seattle, though, not that bad. I think their defense has some holes, but Geno Smith is playing well. I mean, what were his numbers over the weekend? 20 of 31, 197 passing yards, sacked 5 times, so that's not good, but no touchdowns. So not a great game. But he has played well. I mean, he's put up good numbers. I know he went into New Orleans and almost won in a shootout. So I think Seattle, about like Atlanta. If they can, hang around, I think they have a decent shot of making the playoffs. Arizona, they're getting DeAndre Hopkins back this week, so that's good. They just traded for Robbie Anderson. I mean, who's all right. I don't think that's going to fix Arizona's issues. They still have a lot of holes. They have holes on their offensive line. They have holes defensively. I don't think this is going to get it done. They're 3-3, 2-4 right now. Kyler Murray's not playing well. Getting DeAndre Hopkins back will help. But I don't see Arizona really turning things around. Buffalo at Kansas City. Great game. Came down to the wire. Really, the game shouldn't have been that close. I know Buffalo had some opportunities in the red zone that they squandered. Let me see here. Red zone. Yeah, Buffalo was 2 out of 4 in the red zone. That's uncharacteristic of them. They're usually a good red zone team. So this game probably should have been worse. But Buffalo, I mean, I wrote about it on my blog when I put Buffalo at number 1. I mean, I've had them at number 1 the whole year. But this is the first time really since Brady was still in New England that I felt extremely confident putting a team at number 1. I can't say enough good things about the Bills. They're really set. They play really good football. My only concern with them is that they rely too much on Josh Allen. And I love Josh Allen, don't get me wrong. But I text James several times when I watch him play, and he keeps the ball way too many times. I don't know if it's him or the coaching staff, but I'm just like, Joshua, just hand the ball off, man. You don't have to run the ball. How many times did he run the ball this game? 12 times. That's way too many. Way too many. No quarterback should really pocket quarterback. Like if it's Lamar Jackson, I don't give a shit. Run the ball 30 times for all I care. But I'm like Josh Allen, that is not your game. You're meant to stay in the pocket. I know you can run. That does not mean you run 12 times a game. So, Joshua, stop keeping the ball. I don't want you to get hurt. You're in the middle of your MVP tour, and I know James and I are his syndicate parents. We've been on this kid since he came out of Wyoming. I know James would say the same thing. Just hand the ball off, man. You don't have to play. You don't have to be Superman. Don't be Superman. No one wants you to be Superman. I don't want you to get hurt. Like my heart comes out of my chest every time you keep the ball, because I'm so nervous for you. Kansas City. I mean, they lost to a better team. I don't think Kansas City has many issues. I'll tell you what. I feel like their defense is starting to figure things out, which is good. Because they're playing a lot of young guys that I think should be pretty good by the end of the season. But they just lost to a better team. I know the game was at home, but they just lost to a better team. Play this game in January, who knows, although it likely will be in Buffalo. Sunday Night Football, Dallas at Philly. We knew it was coming eventually with Cooper Rush. Dallas isn't that good. Well, I shouldn't say they're not that good. They're not good enough to win continue winning with Cooper Rush at quarterback. A loss was coming eventually. And it came against Philly. And Dallas really didn't play all that well, even though the score was fairly close. But Philly was the better team. Dallas, hats off to Dallas. I think they're doing a really good job, despite the injury to Dak Prescott. Defensively, they're playing really well. Micah Parsons looks like Defensive Player of the Year. But this was coming, and I'm not surprised it came against the Eagles. As for the Eagles, they keep winning. I'm still waiting. I don't know if I'm waiting for them to drop off is the right phrase I want to go with. I'm waiting for the rest of the NFC to catch up, more likely. I think San Francisco, if they get healthy, is a better team than Philly. I think LA, Green Bay, and Tampa Bay, if they can figure things out, is a better team than Philly. I don't think Minnesota's a better team, but I just gave you 4 teams that I think are better than Philly, given the right variables. So I'm still waiting for the rest of the NFC to catch up to Philly. But right now, Philly's in, I think, another league than the rest of the NFC. Monday Night Football, I'll be honest, I didn't bother watching the game. But Broncos at Chargers. Chargers, man, this is 3 wins in a row. Good on paper. But all 3 wins have been struggle wins against really bad competition. I think it was Houston and Cleveland and now Denver. They won all of them by, I think Houston was 2 scores, but it was a 1-score game late. And I think the Chargers scored to go up to 10 with like 5 minutes left. So it was really more like a 1-score game. Then they barely beat the Browns, and then now they've barely beaten the Broncos, and the game went to overtime. So Chargers, 3 wins in a row, have not been impressive in the process. So I'm not really sure what to make of them. Broncos, it might be time to admit that this team isn't any good. Russell Wilson continues to struggle. Him and Nathaniel Hackett aren't on the same page. If this keeps going, I don't think Hackett's going to be around. The ownership and the new GM brought Russell Wilson in to win and compete. And if they don't make the playoffs, I have a hard time seeing Nathaniel Hackett keeping his job. And I like Nathaniel Hackett. I like what he did for Green Bay when he was the offensive coordinator there. But I think this is problematic. And I'm not sure it's going to get any better. Javonte Williams is out for the year. Left tackle Garrett Bowles is out for the year. They're feeding Latavius Murray instead of Melvin Gordon, which I don't really get. Unless Russell Wilson puts on the Superman cape and plays like he was in Seattle, I don't think Denver's going anywhere. So that is NFL recap. I want to say real quick, I've already kind of talked about it. The NFL is very upside down right now. The Rams, the Bucks, the Packers, the Broncos, these are all teams that we thought, even the Raiders. I'm trying to think of who else. Maybe the Colts. I'm not going to put the 49ers in there. I think they're off to a better start than these teams. But these are all teams that we thought were going to be really good in the preseason, and they've all struggled. And then as for, some teams that have surprised us, like the Giants, somewhat the Jaguars, the Falcons, a handful, the Jets are another team that have surprised us and have overperformed. And I don't know what to make of it right now. I want to say that these teams that are bad that we expected to be good are going to figure things out eventually, because I keep looking at, like the Giants and the Falcons, and I'm like, Not so much the Jets. I think they have a decent roster, a better roster than the Giants and Falcons. But Giants and Falcons, those are maybe bottom 5, maybe 10 rosters in the league, and the Giants are 5-1. I sent James a meme today of the scene in Breaking Bad. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick, and I'll read it off. I sent it to him, and he said, "Yep, this is me," and it's Jesse saying, it's him talking to Walter White, and Jesse says the Giants are only ranked so high in power ranking because they keep winning. Walter White says, "What?" Jesse, like they're not a good team. Other players suck. Just because they beat other teams doesn't make them a good team. And Walter White says, "Jesse, what the hell are you talking about?" And that's about where I am with the Giants. They keep winning. I have to give them respect. I put them in my top 10 in my power rankings. But that's very tentative. Like, they could be gone next week. They've really overperformed. Between the Jets and the Giants, I think the Jets maybe are a little bit more legitimate. I think their roster is a little bit better. The Giants, I think, still have some holes on their offensive line. Although Brian Daboll's coached really well. So I'm going to lean Jets probably just because I like their roster a little bit more. But I don't know what to make of the season. Anyway, back to what I was saying. It's very upside down right now. Teams that are bad are good, that we expected to be bad are good. Teams that we expected to be good are bad. We still got, 12 weeks left? 18 weeks season? Still got 12 weeks. Plenty of time to turn things around, but I just don't think it's good football. I saw a tweet today from someone who specializes in fantasy football saying fantasy scores are down 22% this year. Sure sounds like bad football to me. I don't think offenses are on the same page. Definitely the 3 teams I just mentioned in the NFC, the Rams, the Packers, the Bucks, all struggling offensively, all breaking in sort of new pieces and not being able to figure things out. So plenty of time left. I'm not totally worried about, although I am pressing the panic button for the Packers. But just not good football. Not very good football so far. So that is my NFL talk. Let me switch over to college real quick. So a bit of a wild weekend. What's strange is, so James and I, we gave our picks, and I think we had like an astounding number. I think it was like 6 differences, which it's rarely ever that many times between me and James, because James and I think very similarly. And when he sent me his picks, I was like, dude, I think we have like 6 differences. And it's, like I said, it's rarely that many. I think average is probably 3. There are generally 3 games a week where we disagree on. And this week he sent me his picks. I was like, holy shit, we're way off, the reservation here. And even though it was a combination of a wild week, a lot of upsets, or I don't know about a lot, a few upsets, and then us differing so much on our picks, we still ended up even. We both finished 6-6, not great, but we still, with our differences and the wild week, we still both finished at 6-6. Pretty wild. So Michigan kicked the shit out of Penn State. That was really impressive because Michigan ran the ball for about 400 yards. That was a statement because they had not played well in their previous, 3 Big Ten games: Indiana, Maryland, and Iowa. So top 10. I was debating picking Penn State, and I said if the game was State College, I would probably pick the Nittany Lions. But the game was in Ann Arbor. I was leaning Michigan, and Michigan not only won, they drummed them. So that was a statement win for sure. Ole Miss kind of let Auburn hang around a little bit. Won by 2 scores. Allowed 34 points to an Auburn offense that stinks. Don't really know what to make of Ole Miss. They're 7-0. However, their last 5 games are the best teams remaining in the SEC. It's Alabama, LSU, Arkansas, Texas A&M. Well, I think it's only West teams, but it's the better West teams. Mississippi State, Alabama, Arkansas. Texas A&M, LSU. So we're going to find out a lot about Ole Miss. I have them in my top 10 right now, but that's one I'm not really buying. Texas barely got by Iowa State. This felt like a good letdown spot. I didn't pick the game in my blog, but this felt like a good letdown spot. Texas coming off a 49-0 win over Oklahoma. Next week they have, or this coming week they have Oklahoma State. Sandwiched in between those after a dominating performance against their arch rival, and then a big game that might decide regular season conference championship is Iowa State, who I'm not 100% sure, but might be the worst team in the Big 12. I still think the Big 12 is pretty wide open. Could be West Virginia, could be Texas Tech, could be Iowa State. It's probably one of those three teams. That's the worst team in the conference. And even then, I'm not sure the worst team in the Big 12 is really that bad. The worst team in the Big 12 might finish 6-6. Unlikely though. So not a great performance by Texas, but I kind of expected it. And I wouldn't look too much into it. Illinois. Hats off to Brett Bielema, man. I thought his days were done. I was really high on him when he was at Wisconsin. When he went to Arkansas, and I was like, this is a big move for Arkansas, and it was a little disappointing. Not a little, it was a lot disappointing. Then he got the Illinois job, and I was like, who gives a shit? Like, his best days are way behind him, and I know the Big Ten West is weak, but he's got Illinois rolling. They're playing really good defense. I think it's probably Illinois or Purdue are the best teams in the Big Ten West. I thought for a minute there, I thought it was Minnesota, but now Minnesota has lost to Illinois and Purdue. So they're a game back on them, or a game back on both of them. Probably Illinois or Purdue. I'm curious, where is that game this year? Go to Illinois schedule real quick. It is in is it Champaign? I always think the University of Illinois is in Springfield for whatever reason. This game is in Champaign, yeah. So that'll be interesting here in a couple weeks. Illinois, just credit to Brett Bielema. Georgia demolished Vanderbilt, not surprising. Okay, game of the week was Alabama at Tennessee. I went into this game like I don't know. I didn't have anything really scientific. I was like, I feel like the Vols are going to win this game. And I felt dumb. I was fully prepared to come on this podcast with a note card on because I said I would, with a note card on my head that said dunce. If Alabama, I just spit everywhere. If Alabama beat Tennessee, because, outside of a handful of regular season games in the last decade, Bama really doesn't lose these games. I mean, they lost to Ole Miss twice. I know for sure LSU has won. Georgia, if you count the conference championship. It's been a handful of times that they've lost in the regular season. And Tennessee, I mean, what's Tennessee done in the last 15 years? So I felt dumb for doing it. And I was fully prepared to come on the show and call myself a dunce, where something demeaning. But Tennessee pulled it off. Although credit to Alabama. I mean, the game was, 28-10. Bama battled back. Bama's got some holes defensively that they got to get fixed. But Tennessee, great win for Tennessee. Josh Heupel, I was not crazy about that hire just as a spectator of the sport. I always gave all the credit to Scott Frost at Central Florida. I thought he did a really good job building them, and I thought Josh Heupel just did a good job sustaining the UCF program. And so when Tennessee hired him, I was like, I feel like you're reaching here. I don't think he's ready to be a Power 5 head coach, especially at a program like Tennessee. But I'm dead wrong, man. Dead wrong. He's done an incredible job in Knoxville. And, Tennessee looks like it could beat Georgia and it could go to the playoff. I wouldn't be surprised if they do. I don't think they will. They got to go to Athens to beat Georgia, and then they likely have to play Bama again in Atlanta. I think it's going to be hard to beat Saban twice. So unless they're undefeated and they lose to Bama in the SEC championship, that's really the only way I see Tennessee making the playoffs. Or obviously if they beat Bama and twice, but anyway, hats off to Knoxville. It's good. Just as a fan of college football, it's good to have Tennessee back being competitive. Oklahoma State at TCU. Oklahoma State had control of this game. TCU battled back. TCU is another team I got to tip of the cap to. I've doubted them quite a few times this season. They've proven me wrong quite a few times. Almost every time. I still don't think that they're that good defensively. But Sonny Dykes has done some really good work with TCU's offense, which already had some firepower and for whatever reason just struggled the last couple of years, and he has come in and TCU is really good offensively. I still don't think they're that good defensively, though. So, not that that's, I'm not sitting here saying that they're not going to be in the Big 12 championship. I think they might be. Very well might be. But I think the defense might be their undoing. Oklahoma State, lose on the road. That's their first loss of the season, right? Yeah, first loss of the season. On the road, against a good offense. I think Oklahoma State's fine. These two teams might be the best in the Big 12. NC State and Syracuse, really bad news for NC State. Devin Leary's out for the year. He wasn't playing that well anyway, but that's still your starting quarterback, a guy who's won a lot of games or helped you win a lot of games the last couple of years. NC State, this is their third loss now? No, only the second loss. But NC State, I had high hopes for NC State. They can still win 10 games. But I thought they were going to be around that 10-2 mark, maybe get to the ACC championship if they had beat Clemson. It just feels like the season's spiraling for them. And now Leary's out for the year. Not great for NC State, but they can still have a respectable 8-9 season. Syracuse, another team like Illinois and TCU. I got to tip my hat to them. Dino Babers has done a really good job this season. Syracuse is playing good defensive football. I still don't think they're good enough offensively. But, hey, I doubted them. And I think the last couple of weeks, they've looked pretty good. Wagner, nobody gives a shit about that game. But, they beat Purdue. I respect Purdue a lot. Well, Louisville. They beat Louisville week 1. They beat Purdue in week 3. And I have a lot of respect for Purdue. They beat Virginia. Yeah. And then now they beat NC State. We're really going to find out how good Syracuse is this week when they play Clemson. But, hey, hats off to you, Orange. All right, what else we got? Clemson beat Florida State. I'm surprised they won and covered, honestly. Florida State looking more like the team I expected in the regular season, but that's not a bad thing. I still think Florida State – I still think Mike Norvell's got some years to go down there. But they're still improved. They're just not on the same level as a program as Clemson. Kentucky beat Mississippi State. Didn't see that coming. I was really high on Mississippi State, and they let me down. But how many losses do they have now? Just 2. So they can still get a 10-win season. I don't think that's impossible with the Bulldogs. Probably not the most entertaining game. I still think that's Bama, Tennessee. But one of the better games of the weekend, obviously, and that's USC Utah. I debated dropping USC out of my top 10 in my, SP poll on my blog, but it's hard to be too hard on the USC. The officiating I thought was questionable in the game. I know there were a lot of flags. USC fans have bitched about that on social media. But, they go on the road to a hostile environment. Rice Eccles Stadium is not an easy place to play. And Utah's a really good team. And they were right there with them. They had the game won, or they were winning late in the game. Utah just put together a good drive. Cam Rising was incredible in the game. And then, if then Utah scores, to be down 1, and instead of kicking it to tie it up, they decide to go for 2 and go for the win. If Utah doesn't get that and USC wins, we have a completely different opinion on USC. So it's hard to be too hard on USC. Play that game in LA, I think USC wins. So as Josh Pate would say, you don't want to lose in November. This is the right time to lose. So USC, I still think y'all are a really good team. Y'all might be the best team in the Pac-12, and I was not anticipating that in the preseason. So nothing to be ashamed of there. I feel like there was something else I wanted to talk about for college football, but now I can't think of it. So that is my football recap. I've actually gone on quite a bit. I did not think it would last this long. Let me touch up on the baseball postseason right now because we've had a lot of upsets. I think as of right now, I've got 3 in total series predictions correct. So what I mean by that, in the wild card round, I got 1 prediction right. It was Cleveland over the Guardians over the Rays. Then I got the other 3 series wrong. And then in the divisional round, I think the only 2 I've got right are the Astros and Yankees in the AL. And then in the NL, I didn't get any right. So, kind of a interesting postseason. I wish I was watching the game right now. We're having issues with DirecTV subscription. Phillies are up 2-0 on the Padres right now. Hard to believe. The NL is coming down to the Phillies and the Padres. But this just goes to what I said before the start of the preseason. I genuinely thought all 12 teams had a shot to win the playoffs or to win the World Series, and they're proving me right. Because you got Philly, who's a 6 seed, and San Diego, who's a 5 seed in the NL, with a chance to go to the World Series to take on Houston or the Yankees. So, just a very, I think, entertaining postseason for baseball. I will say that I want to touch up on the Dodgers because the Dodgers, they signed Freddie Freeman in the offseason, and myself included, we're all like, this team, I don't see how they're not going to win the World Series. And I picked them to break the single-season wins record, which I think I'm going to keep doing until they finally do it, because this core they have is outstanding. But they, call it what you want, they choked in the playoffs. And I'll be honest, I was worried about this because they've been on cruise control for the last month. They locked up the division, I think early September, maybe mid-September, and they had 2 weeks of just cruising. They did. I think they wrapped up home field advantage in the last week and a half of the regular season. But unless they just fell off a cliff, they were going to get that anyway. But in the preseason, I'm almost certain Dave Roberts said or guaranteed the Dodgers were going to win the World Series, and I was like, I agree with the guy, but he better be right. And here they are at home after winning 111 games in the preseason. So I feel like if you're the Dodgers, you got to be pretty embarrassed. I would debate firing Dave Roberts, although I understand not doing it. He's won your World Series. Although the one World Series this Dodgers core has won, it's now been 3 or 4 years of this core being outstanding. The one World Series that they won came during COVID on a shortened season and a weird bubble postseason. So this is now 2 straight years of disappointment in the playoffs for the Dodgers after, last year, not so much because they had injuries, but I think they still won 106 games. Disappointing ends in the postseason. So I said in the preseason that if they don't get it done this year, I think you really got to start having the conversation about the window is closed. And it's crazy to say about the Dodgers because their core is outstanding. They're well run, extremely well run. They're probably the only team in the league that, has a top 5 roster and maybe not top 5, but top 10 farm system. They're extremely well run. But 2 years in a row, and baseball is a fickle sport. I get that. I'm not expecting a dynasty, or a legitimate dynasty winning 3 straight, World Series. And to be fair, they did lose Walker Buehler in the middle of the year, so maybe I'm being too hard on them. But I feel like if you're a Dodger fan, you got to be nervous because back-to-back years of disappointment, and you have one of the best rosters in baseball. You got to start wondering if it's going to happen again. That's my only point. That's the only point I'm going to make on baseball. Looking ahead, I don't know if my friend Steven would agree. I'm leaning Astros. Phillies are leading right now. I'm not giving up on the Padres. I'm leaning Astros, Padres. I'm cheering for the Padres, at least. I know James isn't going to like that, but I think it's going to be Astros, Padres, even with the Phillies up 2-0 in the bottom of the ninth. So it's Tuesday. I believe the NBA season started tonight. I'll give a quick prediction. I did it on my blog, but NBA Finals, I'm going with Miami and Golden State. I got Golden State winning the championship for a second straight season. The NBA is the only league that I'm 100% comfortable picking a defending champion. We've seen it done multiple times in the last 30 or 40 years. I'm not going to hesitate to do it in the NBA. Golden State, I think they have the perfect mix of veterans and young talent between Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and like Jordan Poole, Andrew Wiggins. And then, they got a couple guys on the bench that people forget about. Like, James Wiseman didn't play last year, although I'm not a huge NBA aficionado, but I don't think he's that good. I'm not sure. Going by NBA Twitter, I'm not sure he's that good. But number 2 pick in the draft, you can't really ignore him. They have some other. And then they added, DiVincenzo and a bunch of other role players. So they have a really deep bench. So I really like Golden State. And I'm going to go with Miami in the East, although I'm not sure anyone else is as high on Miami as I am. But Miami was a game away from the finals last year. People forget about that. They got to Game 7, and honestly, it was a very close Game 7. Miami easily could have won that game against Boston, but Miami I think they have maybe the deepest roster in the East between Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, a great duo. Then on top of that, Tyler Hero's pretty good. Victor Oladipo's pretty good. Kyle Lowry's pretty good. Like, they have a quality roster. I think they're going to be good. Then in general, I think the East might be down. I mean, Philly can't get over the hump. Boston has an interim head coach right now. And, Milwaukee, if you can slow down Giannis, I think you're going to be in pretty good shape. So I'm going to go with Miami. I think Miami matches up somewhat well with Milwaukee. So I'll leave it there. I'm going on an hour by myself, which I don't typically – well, I guess I do it. But final, Phillies beat the Padres. So good. James will be happy about that. But I'm still sticking with the Padres to win the NL. So I'll leave it off there. I'm going to do picks later in the week. I'll try to get James on. I got to remember to not to talk to him. I got to remember to text him and ask him if he wants to hop on the podcast for a change. Might do some Rings of Power, House of the Dragon recaps too. So I'm just honestly just dragging this out, trying to get to 57 minutes. There we go. All right, 57 minutes in. I'll leave it there. I don't think I can go on for another 3 minutes. It's 9:48 Central Time. I got to take these contacts out and go to bed. So I'll see you all later in the week.